Megatron. If you had to pick one being responsible for more death and destruction than almost anyone else in science fiction, Megatron would be in the conversation every time. Leader of the Decepticons, former gladiator of Kaon, and the most dangerous Cybertronian who ever lived. Megatron didn't start as a monster. He was a minor, assigned to the lowest caste of Cybertronian society, while the Senate lived above him in luxury. He wrote poetry. He wrote philosophy. He built a movement through words before he built one through violence. And then the Senate tried to silence him, and everything changed. The Decepticons were born not as a terrorist organization, but as a revolution. The tragedy of Megatron is that he was right about everything except the solution. By the time the war truly started, the cause became secondary to the conquest. His fusion cannon, his refusal to accept defeat, his willingness to burn two worlds to prove a point, these aren't just character traits. They're what's left of a revolutionary who decided the whole arena had to burn. Starscream. Every faction in every war has had one. The second in command who wants the top job so badly he can barely function. His null rays can disable any Autobot in seconds, and his tactical intelligence is impressive when he uses it honestly. The problem is he never does. His entire existence is one endless loop. Megatron weakens. Starscream betrays everyone. Starscream fails. Megatron returns. Repeat forever. Megatron keeps him alive because a known traitor is more useful than an unknown one. And Starscream keeps serving because he needs Megatron's approval more than he needs Megatron's throne. The most ambitious Decepticon in history is fundamentally addicted to the validation of the one bot who treats him worse. Soundwave. Superior. Everyone else. Inferior. That is not just a line. That is a complete worldview in 6 words. Soundwave is the most loyal Decepticon who ever existed, and that alone makes him terrifying in a faction built entirely on betrayal. He doesn't transform into a weapon. He transforms into a listener. His entire power set is information. He monitors every frequency, records every conversation, stores every secret. In a faction where everybody is lying to everybody, Soundwave knows exactly what everyone is lying about. Megatron trusts him completely because Soundwave has had the leverage to destroy every Decepticon 100 times over, and has never once used it personally. In Transformers Prime, he barely speaks a full sentence the entire series, communicating through other people's audio clips played back at them. He is always watching, always recording, always already 3 steps ahead of whatever you think you're hiding. Shockwave. Megatron is driven by rage. Starscream is driven by ambition. Shockwave is driven by nothing except logic. And that is so much worse. He supports the Decepticon cause because the mathematical probability of their victory was, at the time he calculated it, higher than the alternative. That's the whole reason. He removed his own hand and replaced it with a cannon because hands are for emotion, and he decided he had no use for either. In IDW, he's revealed as the architect of an extinction-level plan spanning millions of years, manipulating entire species like chess pieces. He wasn't evil in any way you could argue with. He was simply optimizing. The most chilling thing Shockwave ever does isn't a battle. It's the moment he looks at something most beings would find horrifying and quietly concludes that the data is satisfactory. Sentinel Prime. Here's the betrayal that hurts more than anything Starscream ever managed. Because Starscream was always going to betray you. You knew that going in. Sentinel Prime was supposed to be different. The mentor of Optimus Prime, the former leader of the Autobots, a bot who carried the matrix of leadership and represented everything the Autobot cause stood for. In Dark of the Moon, the reveal that Sentinel secretly made a deal with Megatron long before the war ended lands as one of the most genuinely effective twists in the live-action franchise. His justification is almost reasonable, which is precisely what makes it so disturbing. He decided the Autobots couldn't win. He decided his people's survival required a compromise he had no right to make alone. He chose pragmatism over principle and called it leadership. The line between a difficult decision and a betrayal is usually intentioned. Thundercracker. Of all the Seekers who fly with Starscream, Thundercracker is the one that doesn't quite fit. He fights for the cause like he's supposed to, but there's something underneath that never went away. Thundercracker genuinely isn't sure humanity deserves to die. In IDW especially, he becomes one of the most unexpectedly compelling characters in the franchise, eventually landing on Earth, forming an attachment to a dog, and writing screenplays no one will ever produce. He's a warrior who suspects the war was a mistake and has no idea what to do with that suspicion. Skywarp. Where Thundercracker has quiet doubts, Skywarp has no doubts about anything because Skywarp is not thinking that hard. He has teleportation, the ability to vanish and reappear somewhere else instantly, and he uses this gift primarily to sneak up on people and hit them. Not for tactical advantage, because it's funny to him. He uses one of the most dangerous mobility abilities in Cybertronian history to be a nuisance. Megatron keeps him around because a teleporting airstrike is useful in a real fight. Everyone else keeps their distance because Skywarp's sense of humor and their sense of personal safety are fundamentally incompatible. Dirge, Thrust, and Ramjet. The Coneheads are what you get when you keep ordering the same Seeker model but ask the factory to make make them slightly wrong. Dirge generates a subsonic fear frequency that triggers irrational dread in anyone who hears him coming. He weaponizes anxiety at a biological level and cultivates his entire image around it. Thrust relies on jet wash and turbulence rather than firepower, using air pressure to knock opponents off balance. And Ramjet resolves most situations by flying directly into them at maximum speed. Blitzwing, triple changers are unusual. Blitzwing, having 3 distinct personalities that rotate with his faces, makes him one of the most unique Decepticons ever written. In animated, Icy is the cold tactician. Hothead sets things on fire because he ran out of better options. Random is the wild card whose logic follows rules nobody else has access to. None of these personalities chose each other. They're trapped in rotation, triggered by emotional states none of them can control. He is 3 people having an argument about how to be one person, and none of them are winning. Astrotrain. Most Decepticons transform into weapons. Astrotrain transforms into a space shuttle and a steam locomotive, which sounds absurd until you realize that makes him the most strategically useful Decepticon in the original series. He carries the entire Decepticon army through space without anyone burning reserves before the actual fight. He is logistics in a faction that treats logistics as an afterthought. His most significant contribution to Decepticon history is the 1986 movie moment where he claims he's too heavy to carry everyone, triggering the succession crisis that ultimately creates Galvatron. The least glamorous Decepticon accidentally reshapes the entire faction. Soundwave's cassettes. Laserbeak is the scout who flies into places nobody survives and returns with everything Soundwave needs. Ravage is the mechanical panther so precise that entire bases have been breached without a single alarm. In the 2007 film, his all-spark retrieval is a masterclass in quiet efficiency. Rumble has pile drivers for arms, causes earthquakes, and seems to enjoy it more than any Decepticon enjoys anything. Frenzy is Rumble turned to maximum, chaotic and barely controllable. Whether they have genuine autonomy or are simply Soundwave's will in different bodies is a question nobody has answered satisfactorily, but they have never once acted against him. Not even once. The Constructicons and Devastator. 6 Decepticons, each a construction vehicle, combining into Devastator, not a character so much as a force of nature wearing a robot body. Scrapper is the architect. Hook is the perfectionist. Bonecrusher hates everything with a passion that borders on impressive. The moment they combine, all of that compresses into one drive. Destroy. What makes this philosophically unsettling is what happens to 6 minds inside one body. Some versions say Devastator has none of the intelligence the individuals possessed. Others suggest 6 beings are fully conscious inside a shared prison they built themselves. The Constructicons invented combiner technology. Every gestalt that followed carries the same dark question. Is this teamwork, or is it something closer to death? Motormaster, the leader of the Stunticons and the bot whose hatred for Optimus Prime functions less like rivalry and more like identity. Motormaster built his entire self-image around being the evil counterpart to the most heroic Autobot alive. He transforms into a massive black semi-truck, deliberately mirroring Optimus, and his sheer size and brutality make him one of the most physically dangerous Decepticons on the ground. But beneath all of that is the most brittle ego in the faction, because Motormaster can beat almost anyone except the one bot he designed himself to defeat. Every loss to Optimus is not just a tactical failure, it is an existential one. He keeps the Stunticons in line through fear and force, which is exactly why Menacer is as unstable as he is. You cannot build something unified out of 5 bots who only follow you because they're afraid of what you'll do if they don't. The Stunticons and Menacer. Dead End thinks the universe is pointless and announces this constantly. Breakdown is paranoid that everyone is watching him. Drag Strip only cares about winning. Wild Rider drives like he's trying to end his own existence. Combined, they become Menacer, and Menacer is clinically, structurally unstable. Devastator is dangerous because he's powerful. Menacer is dangerous because the 5 minds inside him hate each other so completely that the gestalt barely holds together and attacks anything nearby regardless of faction. Battletrap. Most Decepticons have a role. Warrior, spy, scientist, strategist. Battletrap has 2, and the division runs deeper than just his triple changer alternate modes. He is a bounty hunter and a sadist, and the combination of those 2 things makes him one of the more quietly disturbing entries in the original Decepticon roster. His 2 alternate modes, a helicopter and a truck, give him the pursuit capability to chase targets through both air and ground, and he uses both with the patience of someone who genuinely enjoys the hunt more than the capture. In the IDW comics, Battletrap is expanded into something with more dimension, a bot who operates at the edges of the Decepticon hierarchy, taking jobs nobody else wants because nobody else has his particular tolerance for what those jobs require. He is not loyal to the cause in the way Soundwave is. He is loyal to the work, and the work for Battletrap has always been finding things that don't want to be found. Onslaught. There is a specific kind of dangerous that has nothing to do with how hard you hit. Onslaught is that kind. The Combaticon commander is a military strategist so analytically precise that he can assess a battlefield battlefield and design a winning plan in the same time most bots spend choosing a weapon. He doesn't fight through strength. He fights through inevitability. By the time the shooting starts, Onslaught has already decided how it ends. What makes him genuinely frightening in IDW is the realization that he was never fully committed to the Decepticon cause the way Soundwave was. He was committed to the craft. The cause was just the client. A strategist of his caliber serving whoever offers the most interesting problem is a far more dangerous concept than a true believer ever could be. The Combaticons and Predacons. Swindle is the arms dealer who would sell his own teammates for profit and has come uncomfortably close to doing so. Blastoff considers himself too sophisticated for the company he keeps. Vortex is the interrogator who spins prisoners in his rotor wash until they tell him everything. Brawl is a tank who embodies everything that name suggests. Together they form Predacons, a combiner whose raw power is matched by actual battlefield intelligence because Onslaught's mind holds enough of itself together to keep Predacons aimed. That one difference between Predacons and Menacer is the difference between a weapon and a natural disaster. The Predacons and Predacons. 6 Decepticons transforming into mechanical predatory animals, combining into one of the most powerful gestalts ever built. In Transformers Prime, Predacon is reimagined as a single being, a dragon-shifting Predacon who turns out to be more intelligent and emotionally complex than his creators planned. He is built as a weapon. He learns he was going to be disposed of once his purpose was served. The rage that follows is, by that point, completely earned. The Insecticons, Bombshell, Kickback, and Shrapnel operate with no real loyalty to Megatron beyond convenience. Kickback is charming in a faction that communicates through threats, but Bombshell's weapon isn't a gun. It's a Cerebro shell fired into the skull of any target that gives him complete control of their mind. He has puppet Autobots mid-battle and humans in positions of power. The Insecticons eat raw energy, clone themselves when needed, and have never pretended to fully trust Megatron. They are the freelancers of the cause, joining because it serves them and capable of leaving the moment that math changes. Jhiaxus. Most Decepticons are products of the war. Jhiaxus predates the war in a way that makes him something else entirely. In IDW, he is one of the first Cybertronians to experiment with mass colonization, spreading across the galaxy and remaking other worlds in Cybertron's image long before Megatron ever started his revolution. He is cold, clinical, and possessed of a certainty about his own vision so complete that concepts like consent simply don't factor into his calculations. He experiments on his own soldiers, pushing Cybertronian biology beyond its intended limits in ways that make Shockwave look restrained. What makes Jhiaxus uniquely disturbing is that he genuinely believes he is improving things. Quintessa. Not every threat to Cybertron comes from outside it. Quintessa presents herself as the Prime of Life, the creator of the Transformers, the one being whose authority supersedes even the Primes themselves. In The Last Knight, she is ancient, manipulative, and operates on a timescale that makes the entire Autobot-Decepticon war look like a minor disagreement. She bends Optimus Prime himself to her will within minutes of encountering him, which is either the most frightening display of power in the live-action franchise or a very efficient demonstration of exactly how dangerous a truly patient manipulator can be. Her interest is not conquest in the traditional Decepticon sense. She wants restoration. She wants what she believes is owed to her. The fact that achieving that goal would destroy Earth is not a complication she loses sleep over. The Fallen. Before Megatron. Before the Decepticons. Before the war had a name, there was the Fallen. One of the original 13 Primes, the Fallen was given a specific purpose and chose betrayal instead. He turned to Unicron, became his herald, and was sealed away for eons as punishment. In Revenge of the Fallen, he is the shadow behind everything, the ancient force that Megatron himself answers to, older than the entire conflict. In the comics, his fall is one of the foundational tragedies of Cybertronian mythology. A Prime who decided the purpose he was given was less important than the power he was offered. Every Decepticon who ever chose ambition over principle is, in some sense, following a path he walked first. Bludgeon. Most Decepticons fight because they want to win. Bludgeon fights because fighting is the closest thing to meaning he has ever found. A pretender warrior concealing his skeletal samurai appearance beneath an outer shell, Bludgeon combines genuine tactical brilliance with a personal philosophy built around Metallicato, an ancient Cybertronian combat discipline he has elevated to something close to religion. He is not brutal. He is precise. Every strike is considered. Every battle is a form of meditation. In IDW, he inherits Decepticon leadership after Megatron's absence and proves surprisingly competent, not through charisma or fear but through sheer strategic clarity. Bludgeon is the rare Decepticon who is more dangerous when he's calm. The moment he stops speaking and reaches for his sword is the moment everyone in the room should already be running. Deathsaurus. In most continuities, the Decepticons operate as a single unified faction under Megatron. Deathsaurus proves that was never the only option. The primary antagonist of Transformers' victory in the Japanese G1 continuity, he leads his own independent Decepticon army, operates from a fortress that transforms into a battleship, and pursues his own agenda largely separate from Megatron's Decepticon's command. He transforms into a dragon, commands with genuine loyalty from his troops rather than the fear-based hierarchy most Decepticons rely on, and carries a personal motivation rooted in trying to restore his dying homeworld. That detail matters enormously. Deathsaurus is not fighting for conquest or ideology. He is fighting for a planet already dying and a people already lost, and a desperate calculation that enough destruction might somehow fix it. He is wrong about that calculation, but he is the rare Decepticon whose wrongness comes from grief rather than ambition, and that makes him one of the most human villains in a franchise full of robots. Scorponok. Two very different Decepticons carry this name. The original is a massive warrior who transforms into a mechanical scorpion and serves as a city-sized base, partnered with a morally ambiguous headmaster Zarek. The second, from the 2007 film, never gets dialogue or traditional characterization. He emerges from sand in Qatar, attacks a military unit with ferocity the film treats like a natural disaster, and disappears back underground at dawn. Pure predator. Pure instinct. That sequence remains one of the most effective Transformer action scenes filmed precisely because he is treated not as a character but as an apex threat. Galvatron. Take Megatron. Strip out whatever remained of the idealism. Replace everything with pure nuclear-powered wrath. Critically wounded in the 1986 movie and abandoned by Starscream, Megatron accepts Unicron's offer of a new body and a new name. What emerges destroys Starscream at his own coronation within seconds of arriving, not for revenge, just because Starscream was there. His mental stability deteriorates until even his own troops are afraid of him. He submerges himself in lava to think. He is the cautionary tale of what happens when you bargain with something bigger than yourself and emerge technically alive but fundamentally unrecognizable. Cyclonus. Where Galvatron is chaos, Cyclonus is the order trying to hold it together. Created from fallen Decepticons by Unicron, he defends Galvatron when everyone else has written him off and maintains his dignity in a faction that abandoned the concept. In IDW, he becomes one of the most genuinely tragic characters in the franchise. A warrior who has outlived every version of the cause he believed in, carrying grief so old he stopped trying to put it down. His partnership with Tailgate in the Lost Light arc is one of the most unexpectedly moving relationships in Transformers fiction. Scourge leads the sweeps and specializes in pursuit, tracking targets others have lost across whatever terrain exists between here and wherever they thought they were escaping to. Where Cyclonus is the loyal knight, Scourge is the hunting dog. Both answer to Galvatron. Neither has a particularly good time doing so. Lugnut. If Decepticon devotion is a spectrum, Lugnut exists somewhere past Soundwave in territory that stops being loyalty and becomes religious fervor. In Transformers Animated, he is enormous, powerful, and completely devoted to Megatron in a way that cannot be reasoned with. His signature weapon is the punch of kill everything, a compression bomb triggered by his fist. He named it himself. Megatron could tell Lugnut the sky was green, and Lugnut would revise everything he knows about light. The comedy is genuine, but underneath it is a portrait of what uncritical devotion looks like followed all the way to its conclusion. That part isn't funny at all. Knockout. Most Decepticons treat their alt mode as a tactical tool. Knockout chose a sports car because he believes, with complete sincerity, that he deserves to be beautiful. The Decepticon medic in Transformers Prime applies the same vanity to a war for planetary domination that most people reserve for a first date. He will heal you. He will also complain about what the repair is doing to his finish the entire time. His devastation when Breakdown dies lands harder than most things in a show aimed at younger audiences should. He eventually defects to the Autobots with complete breezy confidence. Knockout was never really fighting for the Decepticons. Knockout was fighting for Knockout. Airachnid. There are Decepticons who follow orders. Decepticons who follow agendas. Airachnid follows her hunger. She hunted endangered species across the galaxy for entertainment before the war and graduated to Autobots when the selection became insufficient. She is not loyal to Megatron or any cause. She is a predator who found the Decepticons useful for a while. Her history with RC, built on the deaths of people RC love, gives her a personal dimension that elevates her beyond simple villain. But never mistake that for genuine depth of feeling. Airachnid feels anticipation before a hunt and satisfaction after. Everything else is just context she passes through on the way to the next one. Dreadwing. Honor is not a concept most Decepticons spend time with. Dreadwing is the exception. Skyquake's twin brother in Transformers Prime, carrying grief that is real and shaping. When he finally turns his weapon on Starscream inside Decepticon headquarters, he knows exactly what Megatron will do afterward. He does it anyway, because his code demanded it, and his code was the last thing he had. He did not seem to consider it a mistake. Lockdown. Not a Decepticon. Not an Autobot. A mercenary who serves whoever pays, collecting trophies from defeated opponents. In Age of Extinction, he represents the creators, who built the Transformers and want their product returned. He has a bounty, a deadline, and a ship full of cages, and he will fill those cages one way or another. Lockdown is the reminder that there are forces operating on scales the entire Autobot-Decepticon conflict doesn't register on. He doesn't choose choose sides. He collects them. Blackout, the first Decepticon most audiences ever saw in live action. He attacks a military base in Qatar within the first 15 minutes of the 2007 film, and the sequence remains one of the most effective in franchise history. He transforms into a military helicopter and looks exactly like hardware that actually exists, until he isn't anymore. He deploys Scorponok from his own body like a weapon he carries within himself. Blackout doesn't need to speak. He is a statement. The statement is that the Decepticons have arrived, and the playing field is not level, and it never was. Barricade, most live-action Decepticons are forces of pure destruction. Barricade is different. He transforms into a police car with the words punish and enslave where protect and serve normally appear, and uses this disguise with patience most Decepticons don't bother with. His introduction, pulling Sam Witwicky over in what looks like a routine traffic stop, works because it weaponizes a specific human anxiety that has nothing to do with giant robots. In a franchise full of Decepticons who solve problems by being physically overwhelming, Barricade solves problems by being something you already trust before you know you shouldn't. Tarn, most Decepticons hurt you because you're in the way. Tarn hunts you across the galaxy because you used to believe and then stop. Leader of the Decepticon Justice Division in IDW, built entirely to execute deserters as examples. He always wears a mask because his real face is a secret even within the DJD. He can kill you with his voice, vibrating a spark apart from the inside. He loves Megatron with the devotion of someone who has made a person into a religion. The DJD keeps a list. If your name is on it, Tarn is coming. He will not be quick. He will not be merciful. And he will believe completely that what he is doing is righteous. Tarn is what ideology looks like when it finishes the journey from belief to weapon, and forgets there was ever anything else. Overlord, there are Decepticons who serve the cause. Decepticons who serve themselves. And then there is Overlord, who serves neither. A Phase 6er in IDW, powerful enough to neutralize an entire planet alone. He is not deployed. He is aimed. But what makes him truly disturbing is not the power. He's bored. He has killed everything anyone sent at him and found all of it insufficient. The one opponent he actually wants is Megatron himself, not for ideology, but because Overlord needs to know if anyone alive can give him a fight worth remembering. The most frightening thing about Overlord is not what he has done. It's that he hasn't tried his hardest yet, because nothing has made him bother. Unicron, no discussion of Decepticons is complete without the being that exists above and outside all of it. Unicron is not a Decepticon in any organizational sense. He is older than Cybertron, older than the war, older than the concept of sides. He does not want to win the war. He wants to eat the battlefield and then eat whatever is left. In the 1986 film, he is the moment the franchise shows you the true scale of what exists beyond the entire conflict. In Transformers Prime, he is buried inside the Earth's own core, influencing events for the entire series. Every Decepticon on this list exists within a story where Unicron is the outer boundary. The reminder that the greatest evil you can imagine is probably not the largest thing in the room. If you want to watch similar content in the future, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next video.